Hello, my name is Sophie. I've worked in the sky for most of my adult life. The job was supposed to be temporary, 6 months, maybe a year, but 15 years later, I was still gliding through cloud layers, memorizing safety demos, and pouring coffee for strangers. Somewhere between exhaustion and altitude, flying became my comfort zone. Up there, I was untouchable, or at least I used to be. That illusion shattered tonight. The shift had started like any other. A red-eye from Lisbon to New York, a full passenger list, a tired crew, and a plane that smelled faintly of reheated pasta and recycled air. I checked my reflection in the galley mirror before boarding began, hairpin back, uniform crisp, smile ready. I could do this in my sleep. Then he boarded. It happened so casually that at first I didn't notice. The usual shuffle of passengers, the quiet chaos of boarding. And then one glance. One face that made my lungs lock up. He was older now, maybe 40, with a little more gray in his hair, but those eyes, I knew those eyes. Cold, dark, calculating. My hand froze on the beverage cart handle. I felt the tremor in my throat before the memory even formed a full sentence in my mind. Daniel Cross. He didn't look at me, at least not immediately. He handed his ticket to the junior attendant beside me, nodded, and walked toward row 16. He was calm, polite, the kind of man who might leave glowing feedback about the service. But my pulse was slamming in my ears. I had to force myself to breathe, to blink, to smile at the next passenger. For a second, I thought I might be imagining it, that maybe I'd seen a look-alike. But when he turned his head slightly to adjust his carry-on in the overhead bin, the small scar under his jaw caught the cabin light. The same scar, the same man. After all these years, he was sitting on my flight. I didn't say a word to anyone. I couldn't. It was as if my brain split in two. One half performing the routine, checking seatbelts, securing trays, reassuring nervous travelers, while the other half was spiraling backward in time to the night my life fell apart. Back then, I was working for a different airline. I had an unblemished record, perfect attendance, and dreams of becoming a senior purser. But one passenger changed all of that. Daniel Cross. Business class, London to Dubai. I remember his tailored suit, his false charm, the way he watched me as if he was cataloging everything I did. Somewhere mid-flight, he accused me of assault, said I'd hit him when he made a complaint. It was absurd, completely fabricated, but it didn't matter. Cameras didn't cover that section of the cabin then, and his word carried more weight than mine. Within 48 hours, I was suspended, pending investigation. The media picked up the story. Flight attendant loses control at 30,000 feet. My photo, my smile, plastered across headlines. My inbox is filled with hate. My fiancé stopped answering my calls. Eventually, the case dissolved due to a lack of evidence, but the damage was irreversible. My name was tainted. I had to switch airlines, countries, and identities to start again. I thought I'd buried it all until tonight. When the aircraft door closed, the sound of the locked ceiling hit differently, a metallic click that felt like fate catching up. I walked the aisles as the plane climbed, doing safety checks, but my mind was elsewhere. Row 16, seat C. He was there, scrolling through his phone, sipping wine like any other passenger. He didn't recognize me, or maybe he did, and was pretending not to. I studied him from the corner of my eye. Every motion was deliberate, every smile rehearsed. A man too careful to leave traces. Halfway through the flight, I couldn't resist. I approached with a beverage cart, heart thudding like turbulence. "Would you like something to drink, sir?" I asked. My voice was steady, but inside, I was trembling. He looked up, polite as ever. "Sparkling water, please." His tone was casual, smooth. His eyes lifted, meeting mine, and there it was, a flicker. Just for a second, recognition. I saw the corner of his mouth tighten. He knew, but neither of us said anything. I poured his drink, handed it over, and moved on. The rest of the flight passed in a haze of mechanical smiles and shaking hands. My colleagues chatted about layover plans, and I nodded at the right times, but my thoughts were fixed on one thing. He was back in my life, in my cabin, on my plane. The universe had delivered him to me. I didn't yet know what I'd do with that, but I knew I wasn't letting him walk away this time. When we began our descent into JFK, the cabin lights softened. Passengers prepared for landing, fastening belts and stowing devices. I glanced back at Daniel. He was staring out the window, the faint reflection of the sunrise touching his face, peaceful, as if he hadn't destroyed someone's life. I clenched my jaw. My fingers tightened around the safety strap at my station. As the wheels touched the runway, I felt the thud deep in my chest. The voice in my head whispered, "This is your chance." When the aircraft rolled to a stop and the captain gave the all clear to disarm the doors, my heart was hammering. The other attendants began their routine goodbyes, and passengers lined up to exit. I stayed by the rear galley, pretending to check inventory, waiting. Daniel was near the middle of the line. He glanced at me once, gave a polite smile, and started walking toward the exit. My breathing slowed. I could almost hear the click before it happened. The latch slid into place with a firm sound. The front doors locked. No one noticed at first. Passengers thought it was a delay. The junior attendant asked if she could head out to meet her boyfriend. I told her the captain requested a quick systems check. She shrugged, grabbed her bag, and went forward. Within minutes, the cabin emptied. The crew disembarked, one by one, until it was just me and him. Row 16, seat C. He was still seated, scrolling through his phone. The cabin lights flickered as the engines powered down. The silence was sharp, unnatural. Only the faint hum of the air conditioning filled the space. I walked down the aisle slowly, each step deliberate. My shoes clicked against the floor. He finally looked up. "Sophie," he said softly. Not miss, not ma'am, Sophie. The name he wasn't supposed to know anymore. Sohe did remember. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a coincidence. This flight, this route, this man, it was all coming full circle. 15 years of silence, humiliation, and lost sleep had led to this one moment. The cabin door was locked. The world outside didn't know what was happening in here. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. The moment his voice said my name, everything inside me snapped into focus. The years of trying to forget him, the therapy sessions, the new identity, it all cracked open like a pressurized cabin door. "Don't pretend you don't remember," I said, my voice low but steady. "London to Dubai, business class. You filed a complaint that ruined my career." Daniel leaned back slightly, studying me. "You still remember that? It was, 15 years ago?" He gave a small, humorless smile. "I didn't expect to see you again. I thought you left the industry." I didn't have much choice. My voice came out colder than I expected. He looked exactly as I remembered, calm, manipulative, always in control. The same smug confidence that had made the investigators believe every word he said. He had the kind of face that people trusted instantly, and he used that like a weapon. "You know," I said, stepping closer, "when you accused me, I almost lost everything. My fiancé left. My parents stopped answering my calls for a while because they couldn't handle the reporters outside their house. I lost my license for 8 months. And you," I took a shaky breath, "you just walked away." He sighed softly, as if my pain were an inconvenience. "I didn't plan for it to get that out of hand," he said. "It was supposed to be simple." "Simple?" I repeated, disbelief twisting in my chest. "You called me violent. You said I hit you." He looked away then, the first sign of discomfort I'd seen. "You weren't supposed to be on that flight," he murmured. "What?" He hesitated, then looked back up at me. That night, I wasn't a regular passenger. I was working for someone, a private security contractor. We were investigating a man suspected of leaking corporate data through in-flight Wi-Fi networks. I was supposed to tail him quietly, but you walked by at the wrong moment. He passed something to you, a drive, or what looked like one. I had to act like I didn't see. If my cover was blown, his voice trailed off. I stared at him, my stomach twisting. "So you made up an assault accusation to protect your cover story?" "I didn't think it would stick," he said quickly. "I thought it would just divert attention. HR would give you a warning, maybe a suspension. I didn't expect it to destroy you." I laughed then, sharp and bitter. "You didn't expect it to destroy me? You ruined my name, my life, my reputation, and all you can say is you didn't expect it?" He shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward the door as if realizing he was trapped. "Look, I can explain." "No." I cut him off. "You can't. You've had 15 years to explain." The memory of that investigation burned in my mind like it happened yesterday. I remembered sitting in that sterile airline office, the HR representative reading from a report, her voice detached and formal. Mr. Daniel Cross has alleged that during service you became verbally and physically aggressive. I remembered the camera flashes outside my apartment, reporters shouting questions, and my mother's voice on the phone saying, "Just tell them it's not true, Sophie." But no one cared about the truth. Daniel leaned forward now, lowering his tone. "Sophie, listen, what I did wasn't personal, it was survival. I was under contract, classified work. The people I worked for didn't tolerate mistakes. If I told them I was seen, I'd be dead by morning." I crossed my arms. "So you chose to sacrifice me instead?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, because I didn't know you." That honesty, cold and matter of fact, cut deeper than any lie. I stepped closer until I was standing right in front of him. The hum of the aircraft systems filled the silence between us. "You know what it's like to have your life taken apart piece by piece?" I asked quietly. "To wake up every day wondering if people still whisper about you? To have your mother cry because her daughter's name became a scandal?" He didn't answer. His jaw clenched. "I rebuilt everything," I said. "New name, new country, new airline. I learned how to smile again, how to breathe again. But every time I walk past a mirror, I still see her, the woman you destroyed." Daniel's eyes softened for a moment. "You have every right to hate me." "I don't hate you," I said, my voice steady now. "I just want you to understand what you did." He looked away again, rubbing his temples. "You wouldn't believe the things I've done since then, the things I've seen. You were just collateral damage." Collateral damage. The words made my skin crawl. He started to stand up, but I placed a hand on the back of the seat in front of him. "Sit down," I said. "We're not finished." His eyes flicked to the door. "You locked us in here?" "Yes," I said simply. "Because I'm not letting you walk away again." A heavy silence settled between us. Outside, I could faintly hear airport vehicles moving. We were parked, engines off, but the world outside might as well have been miles away. Daniel exhaled slowly, leaning back in the seat. "You don't know what you're getting into, Sophie. The people I worked for back then didn't just vanish. If you go digging, you'll get yourself hurt." I tilted my head slightly. "You mean the people you're still working for?" His expression faltered. I saw it, the flash of fear he tried to hide. So he was still involved, still tangled in whatever secret mess had started this. And that was when something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about the truth, the real reason my life had been torn apart. "You owe me more than an apology," I said quietly. "You owe me the truth, every piece of it." He hesitated, his gaze darting toward the windows, the locked doors, the empty aisle. Then he looked back at me, defeated. "All right," he said finally. "I'll tell you everything, but once I do, you'll wish you never asked." And in that moment, I knew I was standing at the edge of something much darker than personal revenge. I wasn't just confronting the man who ruined my life. I was reopening a secret someone had wanted buried 15 years ago. The airport lights shimmered faintly through the cabin windows, washing the empty seats in a dull silver glow. Outside, the ground crew moved about their usual work, refueling, guiding luggage carts. But inside the plane, everything felt still, sealed off from the world. The hum of the auxiliary power unit was the only sound, steady and low, like a heartbeat. Daniel sat where he had been, his posture tense, eyes flicking between me and the door, as if calculating escape routes. I stood near the galley, arms crossed, the locked entryway behind me. The other attendants had left minutes ago. I told them I'd stay behind to recheck the aft galley inventory and confirm a minor cabin discrepancy. They didn't question it. We all covered each other on long-haul flights. No one suspected a thing. But this wasn't part of any checklist. This was a reckoning. The moment the last crew member stepped off and the door sealed, the cabin shifted into a strange kind of quiet. I could feel my pulse echoing in the hollow space between us. It was just him and me now, two names bound by one lie. "You can unlock that door now," Daniel said finally, his voice calm, almost casual. "You've made your point." I didn't move. "I haven't even started." He sighed and rubbed his jaw like he was trying to stay patient. "Sophie, listen to me. If anyone realizes this aircraft is sealed post-landing, you'll lose your job again, maybe worse. I stepped closer, my voice low. You already took that from me once. I'm not afraid of losing it again. He studied me for a moment, then shook his head slightly. You always had that fire. I noticed it even back then. It's what made you stand out. I ignored the comment. What were you doing on my flight tonight, Daniel? You said earlier that I wasn't supposed to be on that flight years ago. So what about this one? Coincidence? He hesitated just long enough to give himself away. It was business. Business, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. The kind of business that destroys people? He didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. I reached into my uniform pocket and pulled out my phone. The recorder app was already running, screen glowing faintly. I hadn't started recording yet, but I wanted him to see it. I wanted him to know the game had changed. His eyes flicked to it immediately. You think this will help you? A recording? You think anyone's gonna believe you after all this time? I smiled slightly. It's not about them believing me. It's about you knowing that for once, I have proof. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air felt heavy, like the plane itself was holding its breath. Then Daniel stood up slowly, hands raised slightly. Look, you want the truth? Fine, but you're playing a dangerous game. Those files I was chasing back then were worth millions. The man I was tracking, he worked for a defense contractor. He was selling classified software through private channels, encrypted through in-flight networks. That's why I was on that flight. I kept my eyes on him. And where do I fit in? You were never supposed to. His voice softened. You passed him a glass of wine. He slipped the drive under the napkin. You didn't even notice. But when I saw it, I panicked. If I'd reported it, my cover would have blown. If I didn't, the data would be gone. So I needed a distraction. I said, you hit me. Everyone's attention turned to you. Security met the flight. The real exchange vanished in the chaos. I took a step back, disgust tightening in my chest. You sacrificed me for a fake story so you could save your mission? He nodded slowly, and it worked. I got the drive, the company recovered it, I was paid, that was the end of it. The end of it? I said quietly, not for me. He looked down for a second. I know. I let out a bitter laugh. Do you have any idea what I went through after that? Do you know what it's like to have your face plastered on every gossip site, your name dragged through every pilot chat forum to be called unstable, unprofessional? He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. You destroyed me, Daniel. I couldn't even get hired for ground duty. I spent months begging for second chances. Every airline turned me away. Eventually, I had to leave the country. Do you understand what it's like to live under a name that isn't yours because the one you were born with has become a curse? His expression faltered then. The first crack in that carefully composed mask. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he said again, quieter this time. I turned toward the galley and pressed the interphone switch, pretending to check something. The cockpit was empty. Both pilots were long gone. I could see their jackets hanging neatly on their seats, headsets unplugged. Everything was in perfect order except for me and the ghost I'd locked myself in with. When I turned back, Daniel was standing in the aisle, closer now. You can't win this way, he said. If you go public, people will dig. They'll find your past, your new name. You'll lose everything again. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll go down knowing I finally faced you. I reached for the recorder and hit start. The faint red light blinked. Daniel's jaw tightened. You really want to do this? Yes, I said. Tell me everything, out loud. He exhaled long and slow. All right, I made the accusation. I lied. I used you to protect myself and my operation. I didn't think it would ruin your life, but it did, and I'm sorry. The words hung between us, sharp and hollow. They didn't sound like redemption. They sounded like a confession. Somewhere outside, a vehicle's headlights swept across the windows, briefly illuminating his face. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes, fear, not of me, but of something else. Something is waiting beyond this cabin. You shouldn't have come back, Sophie, he whispered. You shouldn't have found me. They'll know we talked. Who? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer. Instead, he looked past me toward the door, as if expecting someone or something to appear there. I followed his gaze, but there was nothing. just the empty ramp lights flickering through the small window. Then I realized something chilling. The interphone light was blinking. Someone was trying to call the cabin. Daniel's face drained of color. It's them. For a split second, I froze. Then I reached over and silenced the call. The light stopped flashing. The silence returned. The door was still locked. Whatever was happening outside could wait. Because inside the sealed plane, the real story was finally unfolding, and I wasn't leaving until I had every piece of it. The light on the interphone blinked once more, then went still. The silence that followed felt heavier than the pressurized air around us. Daniel's eyes stayed on that small dead light like it was a warning, like he knew something was coming that I didn't. I took a slow step forward. "Who's trying to reach you?" He didn't answer right away. He was pacing now, one hand pressed against his temple, his breathing uneven. "You shouldn't have silenced that," he muttered. "If it's who I think it is, they'll know something's wrong." "Good," I said quietly. "Maybe they should." He turned sharply toward me, eyes flaring. "You don't understand. The people I work for don't like exposure. They erase it." "Erase?" I repeated, almost laughing. "Like you erased me?" He stopped pacing. The words landed. He looked at me like he wanted to argue but couldn't. Then he sat back down, rubbing his hands together, his voice lower now. "You think I was the only one lying back then? That whole incident wasn't just a random accusation, Sophie. It was planned." I froze. Planned by who? Daniel hesitated, then looked toward the window again, making sure no one was near. "You remember the man I told you about, the one passing data through the in-flight network?" I nodded. He wasn't just some rogue employee. He was a whistleblower. He was trying to leak files from a private defense firm, files that detailed illegal surveillance programs involving multiple airlines, your airline included. My stomach twisted. "You're saying—" "I'm saying your company wasn't innocent," Daniel cut in. "They used passenger data, flight recordings, even crew background checks to track specific people, politicians, journalists, activists. The system was built into the Wi-Fi network. He was trying to expose it. And when he realized you were the one who unknowingly handled the handoff, you became a liability." I took a step back, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "So they set me up." He nodded. "They couldn't risk the leak being traced back to one of their own. The easiest move was to discredit anyone connected to it. A scandal involving a flight attendant? That was clean, contained. No one would dig deeper. And he swallowed hard. I went along with it. My throat went dry. I felt like the cabin was shrinking, like the air itself had turned hostile. All these years I thought it was just one man's lie that ruined me, but it wasn't just him. It was an entire system using me as a scapegoat. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. Daniel leaned back in his seat, his voice low. "Because I'm done protecting them, and because if you found me, they'll find you too. They never stopped watching." I looked toward the locked cabin door. "You mean they know we're still inside?" "They will soon," he said. "You should unlock that door before they decide to come for both of us." But I didn't move. For the first time, I saw real fear in him, not guilt, not regret, but the kind of fear that comes from being hunted. His fingers tapped restlessly against the armrest, his eyes darting to every small sound. "Who are they, Daniel?" I asked. He hesitated, then said softly, "People who built their empires on secrets. Defense contractors, intelligence brokers. Some of them were government officials once. Now they're just ghosts with bank accounts." A low hum rose from the galley, an engine sound outside maybe, or a generator powering up. I couldn't tell. It made the whole plane vibrate slightly under our feet. "You know," I said slowly, "when I walked on this plane tonight, I thought I was chasing revenge. But this," I gestured around us, "this is something bigger." "You didn't just ruin my life, Daniel. You made me part of their cover-up." He didn't deny it. I reached into my pocket again, checking that the recorder was still blinking red. It was. Every word he'd said since the moment I pressed record was safely captured. I met his eyes. "You said I was a liability once. Maybe now I'm your insurance policy." Daniel's expression darkened. "If you release that recording, they'll come after you. They'll come after anyone who touches it." "Then maybe it's time someone did," I said. "You kept quiet to survive. I kept quiet because I had no choice, but they don't get to bury me twice." He stood abruptly, running a hand through his hair. You think you're in control here? You're not. This plane is being monitored. They'll realize it's locked. They'll assume something went wrong. When the ground crew gets orders to open that door, it won't be maintenance walking in, it'll be them. I stepped closer, unflinching. Then I hope they're ready to hear what you just said. He froze. His gaze fell to the recorder in my hand, and for a moment, I thought he might lunge for it. His knuckles tightened, but then he let out a shaky breath and sat back down. You really don't scare easily, do you? He said quietly. Not anymore, I replied. I've already lost everything once. You can only ruin a person's life so many times before they stop caring about consequences. The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Outside, a faint knock echoed against the cabin door, soft at first, then firmer. A male voice called out, muffled. Cabin check. Is anyone still inside? Daniel and I locked eyes. They found us, he whispered. I felt the weight of the moment press against my chest. The cabin lights flickered once. My hand tightened around the recorder. This was it, the point of no return. If I opened the door, they'd take over, twist the story again, bury me all over. But if I didn't, I'd have to face whatever waited on the other side. I took one last look at Daniel. His face was pale, eyes darting nervously toward the sound. I'm not running this time, I said. Then I turned toward the door, ready to face whoever or whatever was about to come through it. The knocking at the door grew louder. This time, the voice outside wasn't calm. It was sharp, controlled, and unmistakably authoritative. Cabin crew, open up. Security clearance required for post-landing inspection. I froze, my hand hovering over the latch. The sound of that voice sent a cold ripple down my spine. It didn't sound like airport staff, too firm, too rehearsed. Daniel stood behind me, tense, his eyes fixed on the door. Don't open it, he said quickly. If it's who I think it is, you'll never walk out of here again. Then what? I asked, my voice low. Stay locked in here forever? He didn't answer. The pounding came again, louder this time. Ma'am, this is your final warning. Open the door now. I turned to him. You said they'd come for us. You were right, so we do this my way. Before he could stop me, I pressed the intercom button and spoke evenly into it. This is Flight Attendant Sophie Miller. We're running a systems reset after a hydraulic pressure alert. 10 more minutes. There was a pause. Then the voice replied, understood. The sound of retreating footsteps followed. I turned back toward Daniel, my heart racing. 10 minutes, I said. That's all we have. He gave a faint, humorless laugh. You really think you can fix this in 10 minutes? I didn't respond. I walked past him toward the jump seat, pulled out my phone, and opened the voice recorder app. The blinking red light stared back at me. Every word of his confession, every detail about the setup, the cover-up, the surveillance, was safely stored. I tapped a few buttons and sent the file to my cloud drive, then attached it to an email addressed to myself, a journalist I used to know, and one anonymous contact I hadn't spoken to in years. The subject line was short and clear. The truth about Flight 229. Daniel noticed what I was doing. Sophie, he said sharply, stop. You don't know who you're provoking. I know exactly who, I said quietly. The same people who used me to bury a story. The same people who thought I'd disappear. He stepped closer, his voice urgent. You can't win against them. They'll destroy you. They already did, I said. For a long moment, we just stood there, the low hum of the plane filling the silence between us. The anger that had fueled me for years began to dissolve into something heavier, clarity. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was released. You know what's funny? I said finally. I thought confronting you would make me feel better. That if I looked you in the eye, I'd finally get peace. But it's not about you, Daniel. It never was. He looked at me, confused. Then what is it about? It's about truth. As I sat, my phone chimed. The email had been sent successfully. The file was out. Even if they deleted it from my phone, it existed now, beyond me. That small sound, that simple ping, felt like justice. Daniel's face went pale. You don't understand what you've done. Maybe not, I said. But I do understand what you did. The intercom crackled again. Cabin crew, respond immediately. We're opening the aircraft. Daniel's head snapped up. They're coming in. I took a step back, positioning myself behind the beverage cart. My voice was calm, controlled, like I was back in training again. Then let them. The latch turned. The door hissed open with a pressurized sigh, and two men in dark uniforms stepped inside. They didn't wear airport badges. Their eyes swept the cabin, landing on Daniel first. "Mr. Cross," one of them said, "you're needed for questioning." Daniel's body stiffened. "You have no authority here." The second man raised a badge, one I didn't recognize but had enough weight behind it to make Daniel go still. "We do now." Before he could protest, they stepped forward, each grabbing one of his arms. He twisted, shouting, "You have no idea what she's done," but his words were lost in the echo of their footsteps. I didn't move, I just watched. The recorder still blinked faintly in my hand. As they dragged him past me, his eyes met mine one last time. There was no smugness this time, no arrogance, only fear. When the door closed behind them, the cabin felt lighter, emptier. The noise outside, voices, radio chatter, rolling carts, started to filter back in, grounding me again. I stood there for a long moment, staring down the aisle where Daniel had Saturday. The seatbelt still hung loose, the small wine glass untouched on his tray table. A supervisor eventually appeared at the door. "Sophie, everything all right in here?" I turned, forcing a small smile. "Yes, everything's fine now." They nodded, satisfied, and left. When I finally stepped off the plane, the morning light hit my face. The cold New York air felt sharp, real. I inhaled deeply, almost laughing at the sensation of freedom. For years, I'd carried the weight of that lie everywhere I went. Now, for the first time, I felt lighter. As I walked across the tarmac, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A new email notification. It was from the journalist I'd sent the recording to. The subject line read, "Call me. This story is going to change everything." I smiled faintly, the kind of smile that comes from surviving something you weren't supposed to. Daniel was gone. The truth was out. And after 15 years of silence, my voice was finally heard. Justice didn't roar, it whispered. But it was enough. When the story finally ended, I realized it was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming the truth that had been stolen from me. Daniel's arrest triggered a chain reaction I could never have planned. Within days, the recording I'd sent made its way into the hands of investigative journalists. They uncovered a trail of corruption linking senior aviation officials to a series of falsified safety reports, including the one that ended my career years ago. My name appeared again in headlines, but this time it wasn't attached to a scandal, it was attached to courage. The investigation cleared my record. The airline offered me reinstatement, but I declined. After everything, I couldn't go back to serving drinks in aisles that had witnessed so much deceit. Instead, I started consulting for aviation safety boards, helping to protect other crew members from the kind of manipulation I'd endured. As for Daniel, he was charged with multiple counts of fraud and obstruction. His quiet arrogance vanished the moment his empire crumbled. I didn't attend his hearing. I didn't need to. The sound of his confession was still enough to remind me of how far I'd come. Sometimes, when I pass by an airport and watch planes take off, I still feel that tug of memory, the uniforms, the smell of jet fuel, the quiet rhythm of cabin life. But I've learned that closure isn't found in punishing someone else. It's in freeing yourself from the grip they had on your story. That night on Flight 229 wasn't just my confrontation, it was my liberation. I walked away from the terminal for the last time with my head high, the sun reflecting off the runway, and a single thought echoing in my mind. They took my wings once, but I learned to fly without them.